Boa noite a todos. É um enorme prazer estar aqui com vocês essa noite para esse nosso simpósio sobre as novas diretrizes de alergia alimentar. Eu sou a Janaína Araújo, gerente de marketing da Thermo Fisher Científica. Esse evento, né, é um evento sobre uma parceria aqui com o grupo DASA, né, hoje aqui na Alta. E gostaria de passar a palavra para a Tâmara, que vai falar um pouquinho sobre a Alta, sobre a marca Alta.
Olá, boa noite a todos. Sejam muito bem-vindos. Coloco aqui as palavras da Janaína. Eu vou apresentar para vocês aqui, falar um pouquinho sobre o Alta. Somos toda a excelência que você procura a favor do seu diagnóstico. Então, o Alta faz parte da DASA, que é o maior ecossistema de saúde do Brasil. Nosso centro de diagnóstico tem um foco em atendimento humanizado e personalizado, contando com um time renomado de médicos e garantindo uma experiência exclusiva para os nossos pacientes. Então, aqui, os nossos pilares, né, os 3 pilares principais do Alta é qualidade médica, que é um acesso clínico aqui a médicos renomados, alta tecnologia, precisão e confiança em cada análise realizada, e a experiência, que conta aqui com relacionamento humano exclusivo ao próximo, com um atendimento personalizado. Contando aqui da excelência médica, sempre presente no Alta, aqui em São Paulo, e dando um foco importante aqui no nosso time médico de pediatria. A gente tem aqui, fazendo parte do corpo clínico, a doutora Thaisa Gaspareto, que é a nossa coordenadora de radiologia pediátrica, doutora Maria Isabel, que é médica infectologista e coordenadora de vacinas, doutora Lígia, que está presente aqui com a gente, especialista médica, doutora Natasha, também pediatra, e especialista em patologia clínica e pediatra. Então, são nomes renomados aqui de médicos aqui presentes em São Paulo. E eu sei que tem muitos online, a gente está online também, então, no Rio de Janeiro, são profissionais de renome no mundo. A gente tem aqui um corpo clínico presente no estado do Rio de Janeiro também com vocês. E aí, falando um pouquinho da experiência tecnológica, é uma experiência de alto padrão. Então, trazendo aqui essa experiência da ressonância magnética, a gente conta com uma experiência de ponta, equipamento diferenciado, presente nas unidades de Itaim e Alphaville, que aqui é onde o cliente ele pode escolher desde o cenário a ser realizado a ressonância, a música que ele quer ouvir, ao filme que ele quer assistir, presente aqui, que é um equipamento diferenciado encontrado nos melhores centros de excelência do mundo. E o atendimento que acolhe, a experiência que encanta, então, que é o nosso foco. Os ambientes do Alta são todos planejados para ter esse acolhimento e ter essa excelência e cuidar de cada paciente ali como único. Serviço personalizado, nós temos aqui um serviço personalizado de concierge, que garante a melhor experiência nos exames, com atendimentos bilíngue. Falando um pouquinho aqui do nosso jeito de atender, o jeito da marca de atender, presente aqui em São Paulo, são 15 unidades aqui na capital paulista, com diferenciais e facilidades aqui, de unidades especializadas, pediatria personalizada, check-up presente em 4 unidades e acessibilidade, estacionamento com manobrista, são diversos os diferenciais e as facilidades que temos aqui. Também, para os cariocas, que estão aqui com a gente online, no Rio de Janeiro, o Alta Diagnóstico possui 5 unidades de atendimento, também com grandes diferenciais aqui e facilidades. Trazendo o atendimento domiciliar móvel, o Alta onde você estiver. Então, uma premissa da marca, nosso compromisso é com o bem-estar, aonde o nosso paciente estiver. Então, a gente tem exames de análises clínicas, ultrassom, exames de mapa, holter, eletrocardiograma, na casa do nosso paciente, ou onde ele preferir, com os mesmos convênios das unidades, com cuidado especial com os nossos pequenos, disponível em São Paulo, no Rio e em Brasília, e sem taxas de coleta, e com atendimento disponível aqui de domingo a domingo. Falando um pouquinho dos nossos exames, o melhor da medicina para quem busca análises clínicas, genética, vacinas e exames de imagem. O Alto oferece aqui exames de ultrassonografia, ressonância, toda a parte de cardiologia completa. E aqui, nessa unidade que a gente está hoje, que é a unidade de Genópolis, a gente tem o Centro de Diagnóstico e Fertilidade, que é o primeiro espaço no Brasil dedicado ao diagnóstico de infertilidade e abortos de repetição. Então, é um ambiente todo pensado para receber esses clientes. Também núcleos especializados também nas unidades Jardins, que é o núcleo de tireoide, unidade Alto de Pinheiros, que é onde tem o nosso núcleo de medicina fetal, e Alta Vila Olímpia, o nosso núcleo de dermatologia. E aí, para finalizar aqui, a gente traz a excelência e o diagnóstico também para os nossos pequenos, com unidades aqui com espaços lúdicos, com médicos especialistas em radiologia pediátrica, com cinema vision e todo o diferencial aí, com a parte toda lúdica, com médicos renomados, para atender aqui os nossos pequenos. Desejo boa noite, que seja uma noite muito importante e especial para todos. Obrigada.
Bom, então eu queria agora apresentar o nosso palestrante, né, o Dr. Magnus Borges. O Dr. Magnus ele é pediatra especializado em asma e alergia e diretor médico na Thermo Fisher desde 2002 e também professor de pediatria na Universidade de Uppsala, na Suíça. Tá? Na Suécia, desculpa. Ele veio até nós aqui especialmente, né, para esse evento. E ele tem mais de 120 estudos publicados. Então, aproveitem. Estarei aqui também para ajudá-los com possíveis perguntas, tá? Eu vou ajudar aqui na tradução. Então, sintam-se à vontade pelo chat também, para quem está online e quiser fazer perguntas, a gente vai ter um tempo ao final da aula para responder. A ideia é que seja muito proveitosa para todos, tá bom? Dr. Magnus, please.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here. I hope that you have interpretation if you need, but I'm going to speak slowly. Today I'm going to talk about the new guidelines in food allergy that was published recently in Europe. And it's great news, and it's what we know now how to diagnose a food allergy. So I should, next slide. So this is what I'm going to speak about, food allergy development, and then food allergy diagnosis, and then the value of having a quantitative IgE test, and then the allergen components, how to use them and how to interpret them, and something about education and support. Hopefully, we have time for discussions and questions. It's not important, my slides. I can skip some of them if I think we should try to also have a dialogue. That's most important, more than the slides. This is a slide about how common food allergy is around the world. And you can see here the last estimate for South America is 0.6% up to 5.5%. It is difficult to estimate the true prevalence, and we will discuss that. It depends how you diagnose, but we know it's overdiagnosed in many, many countries. These are the global big food allergens that are important. And it's very important that we have identified these 8 because we need to properly label the food in our grocery stores. That's very important. And most lately, sesame was added to this list. And we will talk a little bit about sesame in the end. And for all these foods, we also have, we can get help from using allergen components. This is the evolution of the allergic response. The small child is most often monosensitized, whereas the older child have IgE, have a different pattern, a wider pattern, and the adult is polysensitized. In order to become sensitized, you need to be exposed to the allergen. So that's a prerequisite. Then you start to produce IgE antibodies, and then you are sensitized. And then you might develop the allergic disease. It's important to recognize that being sensitized does not always mean you have the allergic disease. That's the trick. People believe that, oh, allergy is such an easy discipline. I would say the opposite. It's very difficult because you have to interpret the IgE results. It's not equal to having the disease, but you all know this, so this is basic for you. What we know today is that all over the world, food allergy is over-reporting. Many of the studies are based on asking the people or the patients if they react to an allergen. That is not equal to having the true food allergy. The risk with this way of diagnosing, just asking the patient, is that you over-diagnose, and so many people around the world are avoiding foods in vain. They should be able to eat it without avoiding. Avoiding causes a lot of anxiety and also a lot of overprescription of epinephrine. But you know all this, of course. Going into the diagnosis. There are guidelines all over the world, and there are Brazilian guidelines, and there are Swedish guidelines, etc. Some of the most important guidelines are from the United States. NIH have food allergy guidelines from 2010, and they are still accurate. We have Galen food allergy guidelines from 2022, but the most recent guidelines are from European Academy. 2023, the guidelines on the management of IgE-mediated food allergy came, and last year the diagnostic guidelines came. They are both, first author is Alexander Santos, and there are many excellent allergists in food allergy that are co-authors. And I think, I haven't read them all, but I think there is a Brazilian expert on these papers too. They have been very discussed, and it's an honor for me to present parts of it to you now. The basis of the food allergy diagnostic paper is, of course, the clinical history. We know, of course, it's so important to ask the patient what they are reacting to. And then first line is doing an allergy test, specific IgE or skin prick. Second step is CRD. doing the components. And of course, the gold standard is doing the food provocation. Of course, it's not easy to do, food challenge. We all know that. And it's good that we don't have to challenge every patient today. So this is sort of the summary of the food allergy guidelines from European Academy, that you start, as we already said, about the clinical history and the whole allergens. You start there. Then you continue, if needed, to do the components. And the recommendation is that you do the single plex, the allergen components on single plex first. If you are not sure, then the next step is to do the multiplex, the microarray. And from my point of view, I do ImmunoCAP ISAC, which is also part of the portfolio of Thermo Fisher. So that is what we are going to discuss. What's new in the guidelines is, for the first time, we have the basophil activation test. The BAT test is in the guidelines here. And before you go for a food challenge. So my question to you, are you familiar with the basophil activation test? Have you done it in your clinic? You don't have it. Okay. It differs from all over the world. We have it in some hospitals in my country. We have it in Uppsala, but we're doing it only for very rare allergens when we don't have an ImmunoCAP. Drug allergy, for example, we do it to confirm or to exclude. So what is the guideline saying about the components? The guidelines say that you should use the components RH2, Core A14, ANA O3, and CES A1 for peanut, hazelnut, cashew, and sesame. That is for sure evidence-based, and we will discuss that, what it means, how to use them. But it also, which I think is very important, being a pediatrician, that you should reassess over time to understand if tolerance is developing. That hasn't been that common in food guidelines before, stressing that you need to reassess the specific IgE for egg or milk or wheat, for example. So that is also now in the guidelines, which is very important. So this is a summary of the guidelines, that if you are high likelihood of the allergy test and high likelihood of being having an allergy from a clinical perspective, then you are likely to be allergic. That is clear. The combination of the clinical history and the allergy test. On the same time, if you have low likelihood for the test, low likelihood for the clinic, then it's unlikely that you have a food allergy. And then there are combinations, and we are all aware the different combinations, because often they are causing your headache, you know. But then you could do the components, of course. So what I really appreciate in my clinic, because I still practice as a pediatrician, is that the test is truly quantitative. You can rely on the results. And the problem is that there are many factors that are behind the level of the IgE. The age is one factor, then the degree of atopy, the load, the type of allergen, and the symptoms. They are all a combination of the result of the IgE concentration. But we know now the higher the concentration of the IgE antibodies, the higher the risk is to having the food allergy, a symptomatic food allergy. And more than 25 years ago, Professor Hugh Sampson at Mount Sinai came with the specific IgE decision points. And I think you are already aware of them. This was done in US children. And I think they have been very helpful for the doctor to know what is the decision point. When do you need to not, for example, do a food challenge for egg? It's 6 kilo units on ImmunoCAP. Then it's most likely you have an egg allergy. But this is true for this US population. There have been many, many publications, many studies about this, because they can vary depending on the population you are studying. I see several of you are nodding. This is not the whole truth. And we have understood that it depends on the children or the patients you are studying. But still, they are guiding us how to act. So the new thing now with the European Academic Guidelines is they have tried to put down the decision points for all these foods, both for whole allergen, but the beauty from my point of view is that they also have tried to put down the decision point for the allergen components, because that's great. Now we have enough studies all over the world, also for the components. So now we have a guidance for the levels of the components, because they differ from components to components. So we can read about the sensitivity and the specificity for the components listed here. But in general, I think you know that, is that the components really help increase the specificity. You can be more certain than doing the whole allergen. But I think it's important also to have the whole allergen levels, and then you do the components. And I was very proud to read that all these decision points published in European Academic Guidelines are based or performed with ImmunoCAP. That is important to remember. I'm not going to read them for you in detail, but you can really sit there and think about in your own clinic, how to interpret the components. And then, of course, age is an important factor when you are interpreting the IgE. I've been doing a lot of studies, and now we know that low levels in children can be very relevant, and these are some of these studies published where IgE low levels can really make a difference, and there are now also around components, RH6, CoRA9, walnut, peach, etc. And me and colleagues were able to write this together, an overview, a review that was published 2 years ago. This is the basis. This was the study we did together in Japan. It really shows that if you look at 3 probability curves for 3 different groups of children based on age in relationship to egg reactions in food challenge, and you can see that 1 kilo units can mean a likelihood or 10% risk of reacting in challenge for 1 year old. But if you are below 1, that the same level can increase the risk to 40% if you do a food challenge. So what you should remember is that a low level in a small child, like 1 year or younger, can be very important clinically compared to a 3-year-old. So you just can't look at the level and then decide. So, and I mentioned the US NIH guidelines from 2010. What they are stating is that the predictive value is tied to the platform you are using. So the clinical evidence for ImmunoCAP cannot be applied to any other test method. Going into components, and many parts of the world we are using the word CRD, component result diagnostics, but also the same wording is molecular allergology. Here in Brazil, which one do you use? Yes. In Europe, is a lot of molecular allergology because European Academy believes it's a better term. But CRD was actually the first one I think is mostly used. And actually, two of my colleagues in Uppsala was behind that term. Jonas Lidholm, together with the group in Vienna, decided to use the word CRD, and it's still very much used. Oh, sorry. Now, a relaxing case. You don't have, because this was a case, a boy that was eating crocodile. It was the first case in Sweden. You have crocodiles here, alligators in Brazil. Have you seen a case? Is anybody seeing a case? You don't eat it? No.
Not very often.
But you eat it?
In very few areas it's not common.
And honestly, the crocodiles or alligators, they don't survive in Sweden, you know. It's too cold, you know. But now, with this multi-ethnical food, this dad found, oh my God, at his supermarket, oh, it's crocodile meat, you know. And he was a chef himself. Oh, so he was curious. Oh, this. So, you know, it's supposed to be tasting good. Have you tasted it? Yeah, so is it like meat? Oh, interesting. Anyway, so he prepared this nice meal for his family, and this his son, 13-year-old, he had to go to the emergency room because he had a severe anaphylactic reaction, and you know the pediatric allergists on call were shocked, and have never heard about anything like that. The background with this child was that he had been diagnosed with chicken allergy, And, that's chicken, and this was crocodile. We didn't understand anything, How was that? So researchers at Karolinska decided to really dig into this. Why was this happening, So what they were able to really detect what was actually the protein in the crocodile that caused this. And it was the parvalbumin. So they were very happy to be able. And then I learned from this case that actually the birds came from the evolution. They were crocodiles climbing up out of the water and developed wings. So crocodiles are closely related to birds. So now, please don't give crocodile alligators to children that are chicken allergic. This is all about CRD, And we learned, relaxing case, getting back to reality, egg allergy is so common with egg allergy. And it is important to retest, and it's all about protein stability. We know that you can use the specific IgE to understand that when tolerance is starting to develop. It's very well documented, and many publications, but we have to do it in the clinic. So this is one case, just emphasizing the value of retesting. One of my cases, Eric, he avoids egg, fish, nuts, and seeds, and now he can tolerate wheat and milk. But he had an accident 2 years ago for egg. So this is actually, I put down the egg white values over the years, and he was far away about 100 on egg white, and then something happened, and now he's down to 28. But the interesting thing is that on the same time, we also measured ovomucoid, and you can see that the ovomucoid starts to decrease much earlier. And that is what is known now, that ovomucoid seems to better reflect the reactivity of egg. So I'm now much more trusting the ovomucoid to follow that in my children and to help me decide when I should do the challenge. So he passed the egg challenge. His fish allergy has decreased 50% over the last 6 years. And I keep asking the parents, they say, we should do a fish challenge now. But his fish reactions have been so strong. So I think they have promised me that next year we will do that. It's a big problem. They are from Iceland, and there they eat fish all the time, So it would be a great value if he could tolerate fish going home to his relative on Iceland. But the sad thing is that he has increasing levels for peanut, sesame, and nuts. And I don't think he will become tolerant to those, but you never know. And I'm not going to tell you the story about baked and unbaked egg. You know this ovomucoid, how you use that. Yeah. So going into the tree nut allergy, because that's what is the hot topic around components now. I would say that the peanut story, we have full grasp of, or we have a full understand, or at least we think we have. I will tell you later. Hazelnut, walnut, nut, and cashew nut, we have components for. One for nut and one for cashew nut. That's enough. We don't need 6 for cashew or 6 for nut. These BRA1 and ANO3 are very good. We don't need any more. However, for hazelnut and walnut, we need some additional. We can discuss that later. So that we are working on very hard now. We hope for Christmas we will have 2 more hazelnut and 2 more walnut. They are the Visalines, and they will, at that time, we will close the package, we hope. So, yes, and with the nuts, it's a lot about this primary sensitization versus cross reactions, and you know that. These are the peanut components that causes the allergic reactions, the bad guys. Some of you are nodding, you're familiar with them. We have 4 of them, 1, 2, 3, and 6. Before we had the peanut components, we started off with the peanut components. 4 out of 5 patients with a positive peanut were due to cross-reactivity. So it was a great help when we were able to identify these IgE to seed storage proteins. And then we have markers for the cross-reactivity. We thought there were 17 peanut proteins, but we were wrong. There are 18. But we have decided not to develop 17 components. It's not worth it. We stopped at RH8, RH9, and CCD. However, we have a new component, but it's not for commercial use, it's for research use, and it's RH18. Why do we have it? Why do we develop it as a raw product for research only? Because we are working closely with LabCorp, a big laboratory company in the United States, okay? So they had our 6 peanut components, and they were complaining, saying, hey, we have seen patients that are positive on peanut, negative on your peanut, your 6 components. It's something wrong, something missing. And we said, no, 6 is enough. Don't bother, you know. But this doctor at LabCorp said, wow, you have to find out. And I said, no, it's not clinical relevant, you know, stop it. But he said, well, I'm going to collect these patients from all over the United States that are negative on the 6 but positive on peanut. I said, yes, please do that, and you will analyze it, he said. So he sent 150 patients. That's a lot, but United States is a big country, yes. And we had promised to analyze them. And since we are the world leader in components, we realized he was right. There was something missing. It was number 18. So it's called cyclophilin. It's closely related to cyclosporine. That's why it has its name. but it's present in peanut, it's present in Timothy, it's present in a lot of things, you know, that we didn't know. So we actually applied to WHO saying we think there is an allergen that was missed. So WHO gave it 18, number 18, and then we decided to have it as a product for research use only. I don't think we will have it as a product, but I have been wrong before, you know. So that's the story. I don't think we will discover any more peanut components. There are so many other components we need. For example, almond. We are struggling with almond. We know there are PR10 in almond, there are LTP, but we don't know, we can't find a protein that is allergenic. And in my clinic, I never see any almond allergics, true almond allergics. Have you seen any? No? You have seen one? One? Okay. I wish there was 10 so we could do a study. maybe it is. It's not an allergen. There is maybe not an allergenic protein there. Maybe just cross-reactive. Let's see. Okay. But it's causing a lot of problems because it's quite often positive, you know, when we are doing this setup. Okay. So this is the risk ramp, and you know that if you are only positive on propylene, CCD, PR10, you are having a very low risk compared to if you are positive to the storage proteins. Please interrupt me if you are. Okay. So what's happening with the tree nuts around the world? We are consuming more and more tree nuts, and I think it's part of our healthy lifestyle. You are not supposed to eat candies or sweets. Instead, in front of the TV, you eat nuts. My family does that. We love cashew and all these kind of things, you know. So the consumption are increasing worldwide. And the Japanese are fantastic in documenting, have fantastic register. And this is from Dr. Ito's group. And they have seen over 4 years the number of tree nut anaphylaxis cases. It's a tremendous increase over the 4 years. And what they also document, those children that are reacting to tree nuts with anaphylaxis are young children. 2 years, 3 years are coming to the hospital with anaphylaxis. It's not seen before, and it is because we are consuming more and more nuts, for sure. Have you seen this kind of, somebody is nodding, yes? You see it? Any comments?
No, we just said there's a statistic from a private hospital here in São Paulo that one of our postgraduate students, they have found out that one of the main causes of food allergy here in the pediatric population is tree nut, so, along with milk and banana.
Yes. But you should document that. Yes. So this is one of my cases, how to use the components for Eric. He was 6 when he got a trail mix containing raisins, almonds, hazelnut, cashew. And he hasn't really been allergic before, maybe pollen. And he got an anaphylactic reaction and was taken to the ER, and he got steroids, antihistamines, and adrenaline, and he recovered. So that's good. But what was the cause of this? this is the ImmunoCAP pattern. Hazelnut, high, 35 kilounits, cashew 16, peanut 0.96, almond 0.32. So based on that, hazelnut, and also he had heredity for allergy. He had milk allergy as a child, and mother was peanut and hazelnut allergic. So the mother said, Magnus, I knew it. It was hazelnut allergy. Okay. Okay, mothers are always right, correct? So I wasn't really sure. What now in the literature, in the guidelines and also reviews, is that these tests for CORE14, CORE9, JAGR1, and ANO3 are important in the allergy diagnosis and increases the specificity. So, Eric, he had 16 kilounits. Is that a lot? Yes, for cashew, it is quite high. There have been several cashew studies, Germany, Japan, something is happening here, Greece, and with ANO3, and all having excellent specificity and sensitivity, very high area under the curve. So it seems to be a very good marker. There are actually 3 cashew allergenic proteins, but they are rather similar, and it's enough with only doing ANO3. So what Tim Bretting reached out to several groups that have been doing ANO3 studies, and what he conclusion with the Germans and the Japanese and the Greek is saying that you can either use ANO3 as a standalone test, or you can do it as doing whole allergen cashew first, and then ANO3 is sort of 2-step algorithm. Both of them are good. You can use it either or. But what they are showing is that it's really health economic valuable. It saves money for the system that to do cashew components. So maybe, do you know that when we're talking nut allergies, we're talking about dual allergy, and that is that cashew and pistachio, dual, and walnut and pecan, they are so botanically close. So, for example, ANO3 can be used both for cashew and pistachio. One of my medical students asked me, but ANO3, that's cashew, isn't it? Can I use it for pistachio? Yes. It's so good. And what we know now, that if you have a pistachio allergy, you always have cashew, but not really vice versa. 2/3 of the cashew allergic react to pistachio, but you can use ANO3 both. The same goes with walnut pecan. All pecan allergics react to walnut, but 2/3 of the walnut allergic react to pecan. We want, or I want, that we should really know if you are both walnut and pecan. So that's why we are also developing JAGR2 and JAGR6, JAGR4. They are all in our pipelines, because that we think they will they will increase specificity for this. But please remember dual allergy for cashew, pistachio, walnut, and pecan. Then we got several doctors from all over the world was reporting to us cashew patients reacted to lemon and orange seeds. Have you had any reactions to that? And you don't eat the lemon seeds, do you? No, so how do you get exposed? One case we had in Stockholm was a child that always were chewing seeds. He was cashew allergic, chewing the seeds, and he was exposed because these seeds, lemon seeds, contain 2S-albumine. We had a grown-up in Stockholm really enjoying his gin and tonic, and you cut. So he was exposed to the lemon seed when he was drinking his gin and tonic that Friday, had an anaphylaxis. Also, if you're buying cheap orange juice or cheap lemon juice, you know, the blender they don't care about the seeds, you know. So that's also a second a way to get exposed to these seeds. So, and actually both Greek group, Savas Aviantos, and a Turkish group have documented that there are 2S-albumines very similar to ANO3 in lemon, for example. And that was new news for us. So actually, I start to talk with parents that have severe cashew, like Eric, that please, there is the allergen that your child is reacting to in the seeds, because some children are chewing these seeds. No grown-ups, are they? No. But you never know. So this was news to us, or news to me. So what about prediction about nut allergies? The health nut study in Australia are following these children. So they have realized that when you are 1 year of age in Australia, tree nut allergy is very uncommon. But if you are peanut or egg allergic, actually 41% of these 1-year-olds have IgE already at 1 year of age to cashew, even though or to tree nut, even though they have no symptoms, okay? But if they are examined at 6 years of age, and if you had IgE when you were 1 year of age, then 40% were allergic at 6 years of age. So having IgE to cashew when you are 1, even though you have no symptoms, you are at the risk of developing if it starts, the process, you know, sensitization starts, you know. So it's discussed. Is it worth looking at 1-year-olds? You know, sometimes I have a colleague saying, Magnus, you should only test for if the child has symptom to that. But a 1-year-old are not exposed to nuts, for example. Very few have a tree nut allergy at 1. But if I find IgE to ANO3 at 1, wouldn't that be interesting? No, not interesting. Wouldn't that be valuable to have in mind? Maybe saying to the parents, because we know that, for example, pollen, you start your pollen creation, IgE, 5 years before you develop the disease. 5 years. And I think I have started to talk about that to the parents. I see your child has started to develop GRAS IgE, and you say your child has no symptoms, but I think you should be aware of that. Talking about tree nuts, I would be careful with a child that has IgE to cashew or peanut at 1 year or 2 years, even though, but it's difficult. You don't want to scare, correct? But still, we have to look at the data, if it's worth it, to inform the parents, because it's all about information. Okay, leaving Eric soon. Yes, sorry. We also in Uppsala have done studies. If you have IgE to storage protein in peanut and tree nuts, it is associated with respiratory and systemic inflammation, even in non-asthmatics. So it seems if you have IgE to the seed storage protein, it means that there is a meaning, it's a risk of developing asthma. So, okay. So finally, what to avoid? First of all, for Eric, his hazelnut IgE. Why did he have the highest IgE to hazelnut? It was all about that he was birch allergic. So Core 1 was 46 kilounits, Core 9 and Core 14 was negative. So I could tell the mother, I was very happy, your child does not have hazelnut allergy. But if he eats a lot of Nutella during birch season, he might have cross reactions. But he has a cashew allergy that is much more important and dangerous. The guidelines, when I was trained as an allergist 30 years somewhat ago, we were always saying, if you reacted to one nut, you have to avoid all nuts. That is not true anymore. The British guidelines were the first guidelines saying you have to, if you haven't had reaction to a nut, but we were tolerating other nuts, please keep on eating those nuts. Are you saying the same? Yes. You have that in your guidelines? Yes. The dangerous thing, though, is that we are saying that for the school, if they go to a restaurant, they always talk about, I'm not allergic. Because many people, at least in my country, they don't know the difference between pecan and hazelnut. Totally. So that's a danger. So always when you are in a restaurant environment, please say you are not allergic. Don't speak about, I'm only cashew. Dangerous. Okay. So Eric is at risk for severe reactions. He's monosensitized to cashew pistachio, which is a very serious condition. And they should know that he's at risk of anaphylaxis if exposed to it. So we identify the culprit nut. He really needs his adrenaline prescription, and specific avoidance advice is given. So, sesame, finally. This is a girl, Natasha, and from UK. She was having severe allergy to milk, egg, sesame, and she always checked food labels. And she bought in-store prepared baguette without any mention of sesame on the label. And what happened was that she died. and because there was nothing on the label saying it contained sesame, and I think she even asked. So actually now there is a law in UK, and it's called Natasha's Law, saying that all pre-packed food has to require full itemization of ingredients, you know. So it's just one example how important it is with food labeling, and sesame seems to increase worldwide. Sesame is not a nut, but it's closely related, because SESA1, which is the 2S-albumine, and RH2 have a sequence identity of 44%, and even closer relation to cashew, 51%. So the major allergen in sesame is SESA1. It's a stable storage protein, and it's not affected by processing and cooking. And the clinical severity, it's very useful measuring SESA1. It's not available yet. I was shocked to hear it's not here because the FDA was just, when we apply for approval in the United States, FDA, unfortunately now FDA is closing down because of what's happening. But usually it takes time, and sometimes we have to go there and arguing, please accept these components, you know. But SESA1, we never had such a fast approval. So it's already there in the United States. There are only 3 studies published so far in SESA1. One from Japan saying that SESA1 is so much better for it really increased the specificity, 86% specificity compared to whole allergen sesame, 48%. Mount Sinai has shown it's associated with the food challenge outcome, and the Israeli group, it's very similar to the BAT test. So it is a good marker for sure. Then the discussion is about multiplexing, ISAC, when to use the microarray. When microarray started, some doctors thought it was just, the good thing was to do it for screening, they call it bottom-up approach compared to top-down approach, doing first clinical history, whole extract, and then components. Now, actually, in my country, we never do use the microarray as screening. It's you need a quantitative test, but sometimes you need to see the whole pattern, and that's good. And this is an article from Italy, from the Italian Society of Pediatric Allergology, really recommending that microarray should be used as third-line test. And it should be an allergy specialist that are prescribing it. That's important. And you should use it in complex cases. It's fantastic. If you're just looking for idiopathic anaphylaxis or hidden allergens. But you should not use it. There's a risk with microarray. I've seen that in my own patients, that the patients, oh, that and that allergen is positive, you know, and then they believe that's the truth, even though I try to push them consuming that food. So that's what's a discussion ongoing. Finally, we don't have that much time, and I'm not going to cover this. There's so much interesting thing going on in food allergy in terms of management. Of course, we have always been saying, avoid, if you can't eat it, avoid it. That's old. And then now, and also, when I was trained as an allergist, please wait with introduction of egg, wait with introduction of milk or whatever. Now it's the opposite. You do early introduction. You do that here. Yes. And then OIT, oral immunotherapy, you do that here. So and so. Yes. We are sort of, we want other countries to do all the mistakes. We don't do it, even though we are allowed to do peanut, for example, without having a study. But there are reports, the side effects, like EOE, for example, and severe reactions in the clinic when you do the updosing. What's interesting is doing oral immunotherapy with omalizumab, anti-IgE, already started 2013. Now we're doing Plataforma in my country. But then very interesting is the via skin, you do the peanut patch. Very exciting. At the American Academy, a lot of discussions now about epinephrine, the new sublingual. You have it here? No? And do you have the epinephrine nasal spray? Neffy, do you have it here? Oh. We don't have it either in Europe yet, but in America, at the American Academy, they were starting. It seems to be working, and I think it's great, I think it can avoid many accidents. And then, of course, last year, it was a big thing at the American Academy that you could use omalizumab for food allergy. It's already registered in America. It's not registered in Europe for that indication. We have it, of course, for asthma and chronic urticaria, but we are now waiting. Alexander Fiocchi are working very hard to get that indication in Europe. And I think it would be great. I think from my experience for using in asthma, omalizumab is a great drug. And now we also ask the parents or to do the home injections. You do that too here. It really helps that they don't have to go every month to do the injections in the hospital. So I think it's fantastic, that there are so many actions and research. I'm just giving one example why we have been involved, or I have been involved, is IgG4, because this is the via skin data. They have done a great job in trying to find out how to construct the patch for peanut, how much peanut should be under what you call it, the Band-Aid, and which age group. And actually the only way to evaluate that study was measuring IgG4, because IgG4 is a marker of response, immunological response. We can't say it's a marker of tolerance, even though I think it's connected, but it's a marker of exposure response. So here, when they evaluate different patches, milligrams, they could see that only that patch, 250 milligram, had an IgG4 reaction. You see that? And also that was age dependent, that it's only an age, I didn't include that, but it's only younger children that have this IgG4 response. So I think it's really promising, and I think IgG4 is a very promising marker, and I think the most important is to measure it for when you're doing different kind of immunotherapy, that you see there is a response, or if there is no G4 response, something is wrong, you know. And of course, Tom Mills and others are now believing that this strange EOE, eosinophilic esophagitis, you have this? You have this? Yes. That when they are examining these children, they have huge IgG4 to casein. And Tom Mills in America believes that AOE is an IgG4. It's not IgE related. Some of these children have IgE, and some, it's difficult to use the IgE as a marker for EOE, but G4 seems to be something, and we cannot explain it yet, but it's something strange ongoing there. So now I'm doing over time so much. Sorry, Janina, but people are still awake. I'm shocked. So what I'm responsible for is that we have a home page, a web page, that is independent of Thermo Fisher Scientific. It is the allergen encyclopedia. It is a chapter for each allergen. There is a chapter for CECI1, but it's about the allergen and what is known about it, and IgE about it, but it's not product related. It's not ImmunoCAP this and the ImmunoCAP that. It's independent. We try to have it as an encyclopedia for the allergen. And Janina, please comment about this code.
Na verdade, o barcode que vocês veem aqui, vocês vão acessar uma lista com todos os alérgenos disponíveis. É uma lista interativa, e aí ali tem o código e a descrição dos alérgenos, e tem a lista completa, tá bom? Uma interativa. Essa enciclopédia que o Magnus comenta é uma enciclopédia que só tem em inglês. Então, ela não está disponível no site em português. Mas também, se alguém tiver interesse, a gente pode encaminhar, tá bom? Isso é tudo que tem disponível. Isso, todos os alérgenos registrados, tá? Aí, se não tiver disponível na rede DASA, a gente tem a doutora Lígia aqui, que tem implementado todos os alérgenos, né?
A gente está implantando, acho que eu não vou saber de cabeça, mas são mais 40 alérgenos. E, se Deus quiser, a IgG4 também logo mais. Já está em negociação.
E Sesame One, vamos conversar.
So, quantitative specific IgE testing supports you in making decisions regarding diagnosis, prognosis, and follow-up. Thank you for listening.
Pessoal, eu sei que a gente já passou um pouquinho do tempo previsto de aula, mas se vocês quiserem aproveitar para fazer alguma pergunta, eu posso ajudar aqui na tradução. Podem fazer em português, não tem problema. Oi, doutora.
First of all, thank you very much for coming to Brazil to see us. And in one moment about Eric's history, you make me think about, do you think that some specific IgE positive without clinic are more related to true allergy than others? Thinking about nuts, for an example, I think that's different from milk. I don't know if you have,
I mean, it's a good question. I can't answer it. milk compared to nuts are so different.
Yeah.
Why is that? Can you please explain?
I don't know. No, I don't know, because I think that milk, if you drink every day, you have this chronic stimuli, and you maybe if you have positive IgE, it's just an exam. And when you think about nuts, because we now have this kind of epidemic moment of nuts also here in Brazil, and sometimes I feel afraid. Just a small example. I have one patient that his sister is allergic to walnut, and he has the positive IgE to walnut. And I asked him, why don't you eat currently? But what is frequently? Once in a week. And one day he came and he is now true allergic to. So I feel confused.
Yes, me too. Because what is known with milk is even though you have IgE, but if you see that the levels are starting to decrease, then you should push the milk early, because slowly but small amounts, that increases the likelihood of quickly getting rid of it, and don't do a month interruption, or just continue. But it's so interesting, about peanut and tree nut compared to milk and egg. Before was said you can't become tolerant to peanut, for example. True? There was studies saying 20% you can become tolerant, but I didn't believe in this 20% because I thought it was only bad diagnostics. But now, with modern diagnostics, they are showing that 30% can become tolerant to peanut. That's the latest publication from HealthNut, and they are doing challenges all the time. But what they have done, why is this 30%? Who are they? Could we know it from beginning? And what they have used now is IgG4. If you don't start to develop, let's see, if you develop IgG4 to the peanut, you become tolerant. Yes. It's just research, and Rachel Peters from HealthNut, we have asked her to present at European Academy because it's fascinating. Also, Thomas Mills, the cat story. You can have high IgE to cat, and the family is saying, well, my child does not react to the cat, correct? Have you had patients like that? And then sometimes I say, no, you're lying. Not allowed to say that. Or maybe your child is become tolerant, blah blah. We can't explain it. And of course, the patients are right. So what Thomas Mills, who was sort of starting with cat allergy, it's sort of, there are several proteins in the cat, FeLD1, for example, but FeLD1 doesn't seem to be that important when it comes to tolerance, okay? So instead, if you develop IgE to FeLD4, we know those are more likely to have asthma. And now he has explanation, because there's so little FeLD4 in the dust, so much FeLD1, and then you develop IgE to that. But there's so little FeLD4 that you don't develop IgG4 to that. So that's the explanation. Well, it's sort of that G4 can solve everything. It's not that easy, but we need to have IgG4 in the picture if we really want to know why can this patient eat peanut even though high peanut IgE. So there's so much more to learn about, and some of you are tired. But that was a good question. I wish we could discuss more.
Mais alguma pergunta? Eu olhei no chat agora, não tinha nenhuma pergunta também. Bom, então, queríamos agradecer mais uma vez a presença de todos, espero que tenham aproveitado. E nós teremos agora um coquetel aí disponível. Se quiserem também aproveitar para interagir mais um pouco com o Dr. Magnus, nós vamos estar aqui, tá bom? Boa noite. Muito obrigada.